making vast amounts of money. Up until I began my Beatle days, $1 million seemed like a lot of money. Then, upon becoming poor, $1 billion seemed like an unreal joke to me. It was only a dream then. J. Paul Getty says, if you can count your money, you don't have $1 billion. I do not usually like to talk about it, but I passed that milestone a long time ago. Putting it here is to help explain my mindset up until I was arrested on the 16th of January 1980. Here's an example from Bill Gates, US 100 billionaire. He said, I could spend $3 million a day for the next 100 years if I don't make another dime. Then he illustrates the absurdity of it all in this odd example. Tell you what, I'll buy your right arm for $1 million. I'll give you $1 million to sever your arm right here. Having that much money makes one a bit dizzy with untouchable extraordinary power. I have nowhere near as much as that Bill. I, as J. Paul McCartney, am closer to the J. Paul Getty level. Now, it doesn't really matter. I have enough powerful wealth that I sometimes feel above the law. Playing this Paul role was nerve-wracking at first. I had anxiety about maybe ending up incarcerated. Eventually, as I grew into this position that honored my lineage, I felt immune. Living that way made me lose my balance every now and then. Fortunately for me, I have that farm back in Scotland. That place makes me real again. We planned a world tour after touring Japan. It was difficult getting into Japan with my prior pot arrests. I had to convince them that I was not too risky for their fair country. I resented it. When I packed my bags, I set up some serious trouble. I do not fully know what led me to bring about half a pound of pot into Japan, especially after I had to make such a case about how I would not do such a thing. Now I see how resentment was part of it, It was like, I am Paul McCartney. How dare you try to stop me? Having had to fight to be allowed into that country with my pot convictions, I probably subconsciously wanted to incriminate myself just for the satisfaction of showing them that they cannot tell me what to do. Now that sounds stupid, I know. It was just how I felt deep down. Going there with my pot in my suitcase and so much of it was just asking them for trouble. Soon I evenly received all the trouble I set up. There was not a hint of discretion. It was flaunting my rebellion against their authority. When they showed me the arrest film, I watched the security employee pull the pot from my bag, look around with awkward embarrassment, and nearly put it back. He didn't want reprisals from me. He wanted to close the suitcase and act like it was okay, but knew that he could not. It cost me over $350,000 to cover some expenses outlaid by my Japanese promoters, which is really nothing compared to the lost touring revenues for all of our sold-out series of Wings concerts that I had to cancel. I have had big pot expenses for years before and since, but never of that magnitude. Spending 9 days in a Tokyo jail before being deported was far worse for me than the financial loss. During my first 2 days there, it was especially intense with interrogations. Owing to the ridiculous quantity, the Japanese government wanted to make an impression that was not to be forgotten. For drug smuggling, authorities called Interpol, International Criminal Police Organization. They called me a drug smuggler, which I learned is a considerably worse crime than possessing or using. Interpol has files on many high-profile people. They have always taken a modest interest in each of the Beatles and had held in our respective files our passport data, prior arrests, and various other bits of information. I was taken into an interrogation room where 2 men looking through my file asked me to talk about the trouble I was in the last time I was in their country. I talked about my previous pot arrest there. Then they asked me about any other arrests I've ever had. Again, I told them about pot arrests. One of them, clearly agitated, said, "Besides pot, have you ever been arrested for burning things?" "No," I said. "Arson. Have you ever been arrested for arson or for attempted arson?" Unaware of what was in their file, I said no. "In a Hamburg club called Bambikino, did you light a fire?" "Oh, that," I said. "I forgot about that. It was a mistake. I did that a long time ago." "Tell us about that fire." "Can't recall it too well. It's been too long." "Tell us. They deported you for that reason." Certainly, I had a letter from my girlfriend there, Erica Hubers. She wrote that she was having a baby and that I was the father. I did not want anyone to see the letter, so I burned it in a trash can. Really? Were you and Mr. Peter Best involved in any other fires there? That was so long ago, I said. Was it another fire? Now tell us about the condom that you two fastened to a nail in the wall. Everyone thought it was a big joke to have a condom nailed to the wall. It was a big laugh. You do not know about any of these things because you were not there. You are an inventive storyteller, but you are not Paul McCartney. How should Paul McCartney have answered those questions, I asked. Whoever taught you about Mr. McCartney's Hamburg experiences should have mentioned his and Mr. Best's attempted arson. They fastened a condom to the wall in a dark room and then lit it on fire. That arsonist was not you. Then why did you ask me all those questions? We did a security check to see if allowing you in our country would be safe for our people. Besides Interpol's update of your drug arrests, they sent a report of the deportation from Germany. The fingerprints that we received from you were not the same as Mr. McCartney's when he was arrested in Germany in 1960. You also have entirely different signatures. Our analyst swears that yours is not by Mr. McCartney's hand. Who are you? Why are you impersonating him? I wondered which answer would be most costly. I said that I was James Paul McCartney. That was not the answer that they wanted. As more hours went on with the interrogation getting even hotter, I said that I was another James Paul McCartney. That admission only complicated the matter, leading to their thought of me as a celebrity impersonator seeking to defraud the Japanese people. They treated me like a criminal, calling me an imposter. They interrogated me for 2 days over the identity issue. It was intense, not pleasant at all. Now they accuse me of forging my passport and other documents and of going to their country under the guise of being Paul when in fact I am not, and of being some kind of a government operative. Eventually, the UK interceded, but not before some uncomfortable disclosure. Japanese authorities released me from jail and deported me after 9 dreadfully long days there. Resting there with nothing to do once all of the interrogations were done, as international dialogue over my special case was going on, I had time to sit, think, and to reevaluate my life. I had not been gone from Linda for that long, or even for 24 hours since before we married. This immense interruption absolutely had my attention. It was my needed wake-up call. I wrote about it in a manuscript that I titled Japanese Jailbird. It's in my safety deposit box, unless I happen to change my mind before that eventuality. When I die, it will be made public. Until then, this chapter's sneak preview must suffice. My death will have its surprises. However, do not get too anxious for it. The story gets better with age, like a fine wine, really. If I get around to it, I might even record a song about it to promote that little book. In my defense, authorities in London informed my Japanese captors that Paul McCartney, and also each of the other Beatles, was a member of the Order of the British Empire, MBE, each having received that high honour from the Queen for their service to the Illuminati. They replied that Paul's character was not the issue. They demanded to know my own true identity. Even more than the drug smuggling matter, they wanted to know who I was and why I was there letting on as though I were Paul McCartney. They said that Paul may have an MBE, but who is this yahoo with all the marijuana? They also persisted in their suggestion that I was a government operative. For me, there was no greater surprise while in their custody than their reason to finally let me out. I might still be incarcerated somewhere in Japan if Scotland Yard had not kept track of me already. A ranking officer, who was quite amused by my whole predicament, knew that I could not possibly have the same fingerprints that the early Beatle James Paul McCartney had in 1960. With my arrest at the Tokyo airport cancelling all of our concerts in Japan, it also blew the wind out of our wings for the world tour. My selfish arrogance in packing those 7.7 ounces of marijuana soured Denny against me as well. My actions hurt him and countless others. They all had their rights to be angry with me. A lot of energy, expense and hope went into it. I betrayed everyone's trust. I spent that year going through previously unreleased songs, working mostly alone, making an album of those songs, but also getting Wings support as needed. Those recording sessions stopped abruptly when John was shot on the 8th of December, 1980. I could not function at all for a time. I restarted that project on the 2nd of February 1981, making it a solo album to be dedicated to John. Wings members, Juba and Holly, left the band then. Denny stayed on until the 3rd of March, when that work was finished. Then, I did not need him so much, and he felt like he did not need me so much either. It was difficult for him to deal with his terrible loss of income caused by my foolishness. On the flip side, I brought Denny into Wings as a big favour to him and to return a favour done to me decades before. I helped Denny enormously. He can be forgiving of my faux pas. On the 27th of April, 1981, I formally announced that Wings had disbanded. I still love all of those bandmates and everyone with whom I've ever made music. Letting Wings fly was hard, but needful to move forward. After my arrest, Linda and I discussed inherently worthwhile priorities, such as our children and our time to enjoy living. Albums and tours were nice too, but are not what life is about. We had become so caught up in it all that we forgot our deepest springs of happiness. It was not time for a world tour. It was time for us to rediscover all the things we loved about each other and to give our children more attention before they all departed into the world. Time flies by swiftly. We were missing the best of life. There was no point in chasing after more money. We had plenty. It was time to stop and reconnect. Even though all the above is true, I must admit yet another primary reason for the Wings breakup. Denny was anxious to get back to touring. Although I hate to admit it, I keep reminding myself not to leave evocative secrets out of this book of mysteries. Throughout it all, I've been painfully honest. It is a new experience for me. Full disclosure. Okay, I will tell it. When John died, I cried and cried for the terrible loss. I wished I'd been more involved with John all along on a more personal level. I was ever about our business and feeling put off by his neediness, lacked enough interest in him as a person. I regretted it. Also, with John's murder, I feared I may be next. That's why I stopped touring with Denny.